Warning, F-bombs are armed and may be dropped. Actually, they will be dropped this time. There's no avoiding it. Also, I'm working from a partial script here. HR 5717. Let me describe this in one word. Dog shit. I'm sorry, that's two words. But anyway. All right, officially, it's the Gun Violence Prevention and Community Safety Act of 2020, sponsored by Henry C. Johnson of Georgia. Right now, it's in the House Judiciary, Energy, and Commerce Ways and Means Committee. And the latest action was on the 10th of March. It was referred to the Subcommittee on Crime, Terrorism, and Homeland Security. Isn't that nice? All right. Let's go over very quickly what they say they're going to be doing. This bill makes various changes to the federal framework. Amongst other things, the bill generally requires individuals to obtain a license to purchase, acquire, or possess a firearm or ammunition, raises the minimum wage from 18 to 21 years to purchase firearms and ammunition, establishes new background check requirements for firearm transfers between private parties, requires law enforcement agencies to be notified following a firearms-related background check that results in denial, creates a statutory process for family or household members to petition a court for an extreme risk protection order to remove firearms from an individual who poses a risk of committing violence, restricts the import, sale, manufacture, transport, transfer, or possession of semi-automatic assault weapons and large-capacity feeding magazines, feeding devices, restricts the manufacture, sale, transfer, purchase, or receipt of ghost guns, i.e. guns without serial numbers, makes trafficking in firearms a standalone criminal offense, requires federally licensed gun dealers to submit and annually certify compliance with a security plan to detect and deter firearms theft, removes limitations on civil liability of gun manufacturers, allows the Consumer Product Safety Commission to issue safety standards for firearms and firearm components, establishes a community violence intervention grant program, and promotes research on firearms safety and gun violence prevention. And if you think I liked any of that list, you're either delusional or following this channel a little bit too closely. Let's start with what I would theoretically not hate. Establishes new background check requirements for firearm transfer between private parties. In theory, I would be okay with this, but I'm not, because that is a background check between private parties. Now, that's also what's known as a straw purchase. That's already a crime, so why are we doing this? Requires law enforcement agencies to be notified following a background failure. That's also law. Why are we doing this again? Restricts the manufacture, sale, transfer, purchase, or receipt of a ghost gun. Okay, this one's a little bit more complicated. First of all, they did define ghost gun, so good. That's a great step in the right direction. They should just drop the GG word and inserted with firearm without a serial number. That would have been simpler. Whatever. This actually does violate the Constitution, first of all. There's nothing in the Constitution that says the federal government can stop you from making something. Worse, and this is what the ATF says. This is not me. This is from when I contacted the ATF back in 2002, I think it was. Why do they not enforce ghost guns? Well, because we would never know. That's their whole answer. How would they ever know you made a ghost gun? And now, let's just assume for the sake of argument they do know you made a ghost gun. How would they know when you made it? All All right, that's the manufacturer side. Sale, transfer, purchase, or receipt. That's already illegal. This is a little confession. I considered going into that business around 2016, early 17, somewhere in that range. Um, I got dissuaded out of that business because, oh shit, that's a felony. Hmm. Wish I'd known that before I had this bright idea. That's already a felony. Why are we doing this again? Makes trafficking in firearms a standalone criminal offense. It already is. Why are we doing this again? Requires federally licensed firearm dealers to submit a security plan. I don't know how many times I'm going to say, why are we doing this again before I get done? Allows the Consumer Product Safety Commission to issue safety standards for firearms and firearm components. Now, I'd be okay with this except for one thing. It doesn't define what the standards are. It allows the Consumer Product Safety Commission to issue those standards, which means whoever's sitting as the director of CPSC can come up with their own standards. I'm not okay with that. If it said, uh, uh, authorizes CPSC to enforce safety standards, okay, I might have been okay with it. Depends on what the standards are and who wrote them. To be perfectly honest, I don't trust the Democrats to write an honest gun control measure, and I really only trust about 10% of the Republicans to write an honest gun control measure. That's it. Yeah, it's that bad. Okay. Establishes a community violence intervention grant program. There are such programs. Why are we doing this again? Promotes research on firearms safety and gun violence prevention. We've got a whole federal agency that does that. This is trying to get around certain other established rules. Long and short of it, we're already doing this. Why are we doing it again? All right. Technically, if I own a firearm, right, and I sell it to Jim, my next door neighbor, without a background check, that's technically legal. If Jim does anything with that gun, up to and including it is stolen from him and then used in a crime later on, ATF comes looking for me. And they call that a straw purchase. And I will go to prison for a straw purchase. And if you do not believe me, talk to the guy that gave the guns to the San Bernardino shooters. That is the only thing he is in prison for. He had nothing to do with the shooting, but he's in prison because he gave them the guns. He didn't even sell it to them. He transferred it to them. Requires law enforcement agencies to be notified of a background check failure. They already are required. Okay, this is about the Sutherland Springs shooting. Certain agencies were not informed. We need to be holding the people responsible for not telling them responsible. And if it's a systemic breakdown, we need to address that. Restricts, requires federally licensed gun dealers to submit an annual security plan. They're already required to do that. In fact, it's a biannual, twice annual. The first one is they give the ATF their plan. The second one is they test their plan to make sure it's actually working the way it's supposed to be. Okay, so that's the list of the things I don't actually openly hate. Okay, so if I don't hate these ideas, then why am I opposed to these? Well, because why are we doing something again that we've already done once? The only reason to be doing that is to try to cheat the system. You change one word in one law, and all of a sudden, you have a very different law. That's what they're trying to pull. Let's talk about the ones that just are hard no's. These should be easy. Generally requires individuals to obtain a license to purchase, acquire, or possess a firearm or ammunition. It's bad enough to require a license to purchase a firearm. But to purchase ammunition? Are you shitting me? Is that even legal? Raises the minimum wage. Oh, this is fun. From 18 to 21. That means we will have to discharge everyone who is currently in the military under the age of 21 because they can't possess a firearm now. Creates a statutory process for family or household members. I'm sorry, I should have addressed this before. For extreme risk. This is red flag law, all right? I actually support the basic concept of if your cousin, brother, son, father is not all together, doing something to stop them from being able to do something that they can't undo. This is not it. All right. If they are that kind of not okay, they should be in a hospital. And this I'm particularly perturbed about because it's basically a secret court. You don't even know you're on trial until you get knock at your door saying, "We're here for your guns." Now I know what my reputation is, and some of it is honestly deserved. All right. I am a little bit different. That's an absolutely true statement. I also sometimes do things just to fuck with people when they deserve it, that they have managed to twist into these ridiculous narratives of being a dangerous psychopath. I am not. I'm an annoying shit poster. Very annoying shit poster, and sometimes very effective annoying shit poster. Ah, yeah, this secret court shit is not going to wash. I want to double down on that just a hair. I could easily report my two ex-wives and three of my ex-girlfriends, one of whom actually did steal guns from me, or gun parts. Okay, so two of them, all right? Let's get on with it. Um, and just flagrantly abuse this. There is nothing stopping me from reporting them. You want to put that kind of power in my hands? Hell, I don't even want to put that kind of power in my hands. Restricts the import, sale, manufacture, transport, or possession of semi-automatic assault weapons. Stop right there. There is no such thing. There is absolutely no such thing as a semi-automatic assault weapon. It does not exist. It is a direct and irrevocable contradiction in terms. Semi-automatic capable assault weapons is, it's one of those things you just tolerate it because what the hell? It's easier than fighting at something as ridiculous as that. Um, there is, if it's a semi-automatic only, it is by definition not an assault anything. It is semi-automatic. You can have a semi-automatic only machine gun. They do exist. There's not a lot of them out there. They do exist. You cannot have a semi-automatic only assault weapon. Automatic and or burst fire is the key definite finding, well, and detachable mag are the key defining features of all assault weapons. Rifle, pistol, submachine gun, whatever, squad automatic, I think is the next step up from rifle. removes limitations on civil liability of gun manufacturers. That was the hardest no of all. I can easily go out and buy bleach right now. I can easily go out and buy ammonia right now. I not only know how to mix the two, but the proper proportions, I happen to know it off the top of my head. And no, I'm not going to repeat it because I'm afraid some jackass is going to then go and try and do it. I can then put that someplace where I could potentially kill everybody in an office building. Are you now going to hold Pine Saw and Drano responsible for my criminal act? Geez, I hope not, because that's absolutely ridiculous. Now, it does say civil liability. Okay, fine. Are you still going to hold them civilly liable? I could kill 1,000 people that way. I know it. I know exactly how to do it. Are you now going to hold them civilly liable for my criminal act? This was a flagrant, obscene, pornographic attempt to circumvent the Second Amendment, to basically ban anything that this guy is, what was his name? Representative Johnson doesn't like. And some of this is pretty obvious an attempt to rewrite definitions. Semi-automatic assault weapons, large capacity feeding devices, large capacity ammunition feeding devices. Doesn't define what large capacity is. And I don't know how many times I've said this, but less than 10 rounds are what should, well, for rifles at least, are what we should be banning because they're concealment mags. But this says large capacity ammunition feeding devices. This is an attempt to ban anything 10 rounds and up, as far as I can tell. But he doesn't like it, and therefore he's going to try to ban it. And the most chilling of all, of course, was the prohibition on civilly suing a gun company for something a criminal does. If you can civilly sue anybody for something a criminal does with their product, no matter how flagrantly obvious it is that it was a crime to begin with, you can literally sue anybody out of existence. And if you think I'm joking, look at the history of the tobacco settlements. That's how they forced 5 tobacco companies out of business. Just sued them and sued them and sued them until these companies couldn't keep up. They couldn't handle the daily barrage of basically spending half their life in court. So they just went out of business. They had one who settled and then went out of business. And the way they wrote that settlement was to use it against everybody else. The ability to tax is the ability to destroy. The ability to sue is the ability to destroy. That brings something else to mind. This was brought to my attention by a pic that was sent to me on Facebook. I didn't think too much about it for a second, and then I read it a second time, and it describes that there's going to be a 30% tax on ammunition and a 50% tax on firearms themselves. Now, this summary didn't say anything about an actual tax per se, especially about a tax rate, but it's been sent to the Ways and Means Committee, which describes itself as the tax making committee of the House. Why is a public safety bill being sent to a tax committee? That does not follow at all unless there's a tax issue that was not addressed in the summary. There's a word for that, and it starts with F and ends with D. Keep calm, mandatory carry on, and whether it passes or not, anybody that votes aye on HR 5717, remove them from office. In the meantime, Tehran thanks them for their support.